Welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And we are here today with our lovely Dr. Kinga Mnich, right? Is it correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Kinga. How are you?
Thanks. I'm well. Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for making time. I see that it's daytime where you are. So in which time zone of the world are you?
We are in EST. So we are right now in the US. In Lexington, Kentucky. It sounds weird. A lot of people don't know this place. It's just about an hour away actually from Cincinnati. So a lot of people specifically in Europe are familiar with Cincinnati. So I'm like, that's a good point, to familiarize yourself with. Yeah.
Wow, this is great. Yeah, so it's still daytime where you are. And originally, though, you are from over here, from this side of the pond, right? You're from Europe, you told me.
Yes, I was born in Poland and grew up in Germany. And just started really moving around. I don't know, like in my early 20s. Like I went to New York for a year, then came back, went to South Africa for almost 6 years, and then moved to the US. So yeah, and might be coming back to Europe at some point again. Who knows? But yeah,
that's awesome. Let us know when you're back in Europe. Then we can do the next episode of the Personal PR Show offline instead of online. Yeah. Right? I can see you in person. That is amazing. And your name, your name is very outstanding, and I love it. Kinga. Is it a Polish name, or does it have another origin?
Yeah, it's Hungarian.
Because what? Maybe other people told you, maybe nobody, but it made me think of a king, but a female version of a king, right? Kinga, like a queen in practice. Have you ever heard any comments of this kind?
Yes, and I mean there is a meaning for it. So there are two different meanings that I figured out over time. I have to be honest, it's not a name that I loved when I was a child and growing up, because there are many things that can be done with that name. But, at some point, one of my aunts actually came to me and she printed out a history of the name and like the origin of it. And so it was one was the Queen of the Warriors, and the other one was the warrior, the community warrior, like if you translate it into English. Yeah. The translation in German and Polish worked a little bit better. But so, yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's a beautiful name. Would have loved the history behind it as well. Yes, I really, really love it. And so we know that you are a doctor because I introduced you as Dr. Kinga. So what kind of doctor are you?
I have my doctorate in social psychology. So I studied for the longest time sociology and pieces of psychology, and then moved a little bit more towards social psychology in my PhD research, which was actually on emotions and masculinity in high security prison facilities. That's what I did my PhD on. It was really serendipitous because I always wanted to do a PhD. I love doing research. I love being at university. I mean, I have some friends that say, hey, they didn't appreciate, being at university for too long, but I don't know. I was just in love with doing research. And I started doing my research on emotions during my master thesis already. And at the same time, I was I was studying just yoga and ancient philosophies, really like in depth, and wanted to do actually my PhD on the emotional impact of yoga on prisoners. But back then, so that was in 2012 when I started working on that. It just wasn't a topic that a lot of universities in Europe were interested in. Things changed now, so I adapted the research question more towards, what my background was. And like I did a lot of gender studies and organizational development. So working with masculinity and emotions in high security prison facilities worked as well. And it was really fascinating, because prisons work as a closed environment. So it's a perfect space to actually do research because you don't have a lot of interference in it, and you can go in and just extract specific information. but also I have to say, I loved working in a prison. So I started, with actually a yoga prison project where I went in, I started teaching yoga to male prisoners in South Africa. And it was really fantastic and amazing just right from the get-go. It was very, very funny in the beginning, I mean, but yeah, so that's a little bit about that story. Yeah.
That speaks to your courage as well, because I don't think that a lot of people, especially women, would like to go to visit anybody in prison. That's already pretty intimidating, especially if we are a woman and we're going to visit men, and especially if it's a high security prison as well. Wow. Did you ever feel scared in this context?
No, it's really, I don't know, it's really interesting. I think I've always had a specific fascination to outcasts and things where society just says this is either bad or dangerous, or especially when someone said this is dangerous. I'm like, oh yeah, then we have to explore this. Why is this dangerous? But it's really interesting, I don't know, personally, I believe that we should not have prisons, because I think that a lot of people, when they commit specific crimes, yes, we always say you have a choice. And I do believe that people have a choice. And it also, of course, depends on what kind of crime you've committed. But I do think that sometimes people don't have necessarily the feeling that they have a choice, and they commit a crime out of desperation. I mean, I've spoken in the past with moms that were caught for stealing groceries in more difficult areas of the world. And that is, for me, not a crime. Society failed these people. So it's really difficult. And South Africa, with a history of apartheid, it's just such a country with so much pain in it. When I was in the prison, I don't know, I was really humbled, and I really learned so much from it. And I would come out every time after a session, and I was thankful for the trust that I was receiving and the stories that people would, share with me. There was just, honestly, in the time frame of almost 5 years, there was one man that I would say he was trying to manipulate me with the way he was telling the story, the way he was trying to make me anticipate what was happening within his life. But I'm trained, right? So it's not I'm okay, I know what's happening. But besides that, no one. And I mean, I spoken to, I don't know, close to 100 men within prison, and I worked with more than that, and have seen more, and also outside, because I started, I continued working with some of the men that were then released from prison. And out of everyone that I encountered, it was just really one where I was like, okay, he is actually not able to be yet honest with himself, and he's not really reflecting on what happened. But besides that, I mean, everyone was truly thankful for me coming in and not judging them. I mean, that was, I also I couldn't also show any judgment, right? Because I wouldn't been able to do my research correctly. But then once you are in a prison and you kind of see and feel the surrounding, you start feeling actually really sorry for the people that, sorry also that they felt that they needed to commit a crime, and then sorry for having to be where they are. I mean, it's not, I mean, we are not talking about a resort experience, right? When you're in prison. So I don't know. So if you are human, you realize really, they are paying their price. And why would I have to then still continue judging them and being afraid of them? It's just not right.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is fascinating. And I know a little bird told me that you recently gave a TEDx talk. Was this TEDx talk about this very experience that you just told us about, or was it about another breakthrough idea of yours?
No, so it was partially, so it was on that experience, and then just taking what I've learned from that experience and what I was able to develop with it. I started with that experience because I think it was really phenomenal, you know, to be trusted and to be invited into the lives of these men. And what was really interesting, because as I said, you know, the topic was masculinity and emotions. And emotions is something that is the core of what it means to actually be a human being. And it is impossible not to be emotional. We are emotional consistently in every interaction. And I think that's something, you know, that a lot of people are forgetting when we talk about emotions. And it is certainly something that in the past decades has been tried to be, you know, people have tried to eradicate it from leadership, from organizational development, from, you know, communicating with one another, because a lot of people think being emotional means that you are irrational and you are subjective. Okay, so here I'm going to say it to everyone: we are all objective. We are all subjective, and it is basically impossible to be objective. And the more you are aware of your subjectivity, the closer you get to objectivity. So if you're trying to eradicate and push away your own feelings and emotions, the more you're being actually subjective, because you are not able to reflect on your true thoughts and ideas and what is making you feel and think the way you do in that moment. And so, you know, when I was working in the prison and I started asking, like, one of the questions that I asked was really like, how do you feel about manhood and masculinity? Like, what is that for you and how are you expressing that? And in these stories that the men would share with me and the stories that I was also able to observe, it then became very clear that a lot of these men, in order to survive, develop the capability of actually understanding what is happening within them and what the environment around them is making them want to experience. And so that is not just something that happens in the prison. It happens on a daily basis, right? Maybe you're a mother or you're a sister, you are, you know, a colleague, and there are specific role definitions that come with it. And we know about that. I mean, that is not something that I discovered. It is something that we've known in, you know, in social psychology and sociology and psychology, you know, like for decades, centuries. But with these role definitions that we are stepping in on a daily basis comes specific emotional behavior, meaning we as a society expect you to act in a specific way because that makes you seem more sensible, more kind, more feminine, whatever, however we have defined that. Yes. But that is a social and a cultural definition. And quite often that does not align with how we actually feel inside ourselves. Yes. Right? And so that is something that I then, you know, shared in that TEDx talk, is to just like really understand, like, what is it that you are feeling and what is it that the environment is expecting of you to feel, and then understand that what is happening within you is your emotion. You know, it's the energy that is moving within you. So emotions also means energy in motion, which is also nothing that is new. You know, I mean, it's something that the ancient philosophers already were discussing in their texts, but then we just somehow started moving away from it and just, you know, like, I don't know, defining it in many different ways. So yeah, that was really something that I wanted to share with people, to give everyone also an understanding that how you feel is really up to you, how you want to feel. You don't have to take in everything that is happening around you. And also, it's really important to create space and time before you start reacting to the sensations that are going on within you. So you can actually really understand what is happening and not just, you know, react in a way that someone else would expect you to react to it. I hope that makes sense.
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. And this is really a breakthrough idea. Wow. And it definitely makes sense that it was your breakthrough idea, that you had this breakthrough idea, nobody else, given the whole story that you have just told us. So it fits perfectly. Oh my God, I love stories, and I love the way that you told this story, and actually how you then transitioned to your breakthrough idea. And a TEDx talk is actually perfect in order to express your breakthrough idea and to spread it into the world, right? And this is the title, the very title of our conversation today, how to leverage your TEDx talk to spread your breakthrough idea. So how did you get the idea of applying for a TEDx talk? Or maybe you were even invited to a TEDx conference?
So I spoke with a couple of people like a few years ago, and then thought, oh, it's intriguing, it's really interesting. And then I went to actually two TEDx events. One was a TEDx event on women topics, so it was a TEDx women event. And honestly speaking, like I went there and I took two friends, and on the way back I was like, no ways, I can't do that. I mean, these people are just so eloquent, and the stories are so incredible. And it's not just about the stories, but just kind of like the way they are being, told and how it's put together. I mean, I was, sincerely so impressed. And then during the pandemic, I don't know, I was in an online networking event with someone, and there was someone that organizes TED events. And she was like, you should do one, just like put it together, apply, and just do one. And I still wasn't kind of sure. And as you know, from a PR perspective also, it's really hard sometimes to like break down an idea into just a few sentences so it's so clearly understandable to everyone else. But then I was like, you know what, why not? Let's try it out. It's just, it's like really, stepping out of my own comfort zone. And I do that. That is part, usually it was, bungee jumping or, skydiving or doing something like that. And I generally like speaking. I mean, I taught at the Nelson Mandela University for close to 5 years also. So it's not, I don't have a problem with speaking in front of people. There are a lot of people like, I want to do this because I have a problem speaking in front of people. But I was very intimidated by the idea of having to put it together in a very concise way. Mm-hmm. So I put together a summary and then started out applying. I mean, it's really not that hard. I think that a lot of people think that it's much harder, but once you figure out, where the TEDx events are happening, there's a specific system, and you just send out the application. So, I got in pretty quickly, by the way. Once you summarize the idea, it didn't take long. I think I had my yes within 4 to 6 weeks. And from 3 stages. And so I chose one that I don't know, I was like, was the easiest for me to travel to. And yeah, I mean, I sent out 5, I went through the list, and I'm like, okay, these are the topics that my topic fits in. So let's just test it out. And then the work really begins, right? I mean, it's just incredible because you start working, most of the events have coaches. So they give you a coach that you work with, and you have to put it together then into 12 minutes. So you have to write the talk. You don't have to have the talk beforehand, by the way, because I think that a lot of people have a talk beforehand. No, they are going to work with you on it, and most likely they are going to make you rewrite it anyway. But whoa, I don't know how it's for you, but I'm very good. You give me a topic and I will just talk about that. I'm very good at that. But here you have a script and you have to stick to the script. There's no prompter. There's no help. You have to know it by heart. So you're writing it, you're adjusting it, you're learning it by heart, and you're practicing it basically day and night before you go on that stage. But the incredible thing with that is, while you're practicing and doing it, so many amazing things happen. I started just writing articles like crazy, because your brain just I don't know, that constant repetition and creating that space just somehow just makes the brain far more creative. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's that's kind of the the process of it, and then you go and you do the talk and then it's over, and it's so anticlimactic, you're like, I've done all of this work, I've been stressed out. I mean, like, I had so much anxiety. I don't think that I've ever experienced anxiety before that event, and like not to that degree. So it was really interesting. And now kind of like you wait several weeks before it goes online, and then you have the link, and then it's just kind of like, okay, now I have the link, so what do I do with it? Yeah.
Exactly. What did you do when you got the link a few weeks later?
I mean, they do prepare you a little bit, right? So I had a group of people, 8 people in my closest circle that were kind of like prepared. So you don't know the date that it comes out. They kind of like just like put it out, and you have to be prepared. You also don't get an email that day. So someone texted me and they're like, hey, by the way, your talk is out, and it was already like out for 3 hours. And it's up to you to get it to circulate, right? It's up to you to see, to help YouTube's algorithm to pick it up for you. And so I had kind of like the people ready, to send it out to their friends. I asked 8 people, I'm like, can you forward it to 5 people and ask them to forward it as well? So, yeah, so that was kind of like, there was the main idea. Then I put it out, on LinkedIn, and I put it out on Facebook, which that's not necessarily my preferred platform, but I did. And now I place it on my website and just send it sometimes to people. I just had someone come back to me and they asked me if I could give a talk because they saw the TED talk. The TEDx talk. So yeah. So I think it's just kind of like now seeing, what you can do with it and just implementing it in the media, and the newsletters and everything that you're using. Yeah.
This is amazing. Has anybody asked you when your book is coming out? Because
yes.
That is, yeah.
That is.
So for a book, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is indeed something. And I started working on it before, and so I'm continuing now working on it. So I hope, let's see, we will see when it will come out, when I have it all ready, like all to be able to be published. But yeah, that was something that actually that was the most asked question afterwards. The second one was like, can I see the resources? Can I see some of the articles? So I put together a blog post, where I just cited some of my research, cited some other articles where people just can go on, go on the blog post and just read more on it. Because what I did for the TED Talk, and that was just something, that we came up in the works of it, was just to come up with a term that can be trademarked, basically, that no one else has done before. And so the whole concept, I call it now effective emotionality, because the thing is, the way I see emotions, right? Emotions are your sense. And if you go a little bit back and research, there are even some researchers that call it basically the queen of all your senses. It is like everything that is pulling, the sense of hearing and smelling and tasting and touching and everything, like it pulls it all together. It just gives you an idea how you can experience the world. And when I've been teaching about emotions, I always, talk about them in the form of, it's your internal compass. It's like, it's the inner sensation that is telling you like, this is aligned with me, this is not aligned with me. And I also don't believe necessarily that we have to name all of the emotions. In psychology, that's like, if you go to therapy, usually the first thing that you learn is to put specific terms to everything that you're feeling. But research actually shows that there are not specific areas in the brain for every emotion. So the way and where you experience fear in your brain might be very different than where I experience it. So the sensations that go along with it are also different for different people. And, considering that, I feel like, sometimes we just kind of like need to understand rather, is this something that is making me nervous, or is this something that is making me excited? So I know this is aligned with me, or this is not aligned with me, and then start reacting, towards that. So with effective emotionality, with the concept, and that's what the book is going to be on, is more so to understand, how can I use this tool of our emotions? How can I use it in order to be able to, you know, move forward or create the life that I want to create, or be the person that I want to be, or create the networks that I want to be in? You know, who are the people that I want to get actually in touch with? Just to kind of like simplify everything that is out there. So yeah.
I got it. Yeah, this is so good. This is such a good tool in thought leadership. This is something that I recommend to all of my students as well. Please find your breakthrough idea, but also please find, like, coin a new word or a neologism to express your breakthrough idea, right? Because then you can really trademark it, and you can really, you know, create like a very, like, how can I say, and if, let's say, a real entity, I would say, like, you are really, it's not just a concept that you need maybe 3 sentences to explain. It's really just one word. You're really branding it, right? And then you can trademark it. And then, as we know, in the legal world as well, you can't really protect an idea. You can only protect the expression of a certain idea. And this is why we want to use frameworks and even better neologisms. So that is brilliant. Well done. Well done, Dr. Kinga. I love this. And there's something that I want to ask you. So all of this, you know, project with the TEDx talk, and also maybe, I mean, certainly very soon with your book as well. So all of your thought leadership, did it play any role in a major project that you told me about just a few minutes before we went live? And I was super fascinated. And I was like, oh my God, this is so newsworthy. It needs to go out into the world immediately. Is there a connection to the thought leadership that you build around emotions and this major project that you have been building for women?
Yes. Wow. Okay. How do I explain that? It's really, you know, like, I'm still trying to figure out how to actually place it into words. But of course, you know, there's a very important connection with it, because emotions are usually something that is being classified as female, you know, and a lot of women, specifically women that are in leadership positions and women that are in surroundings where they work with a lot of men, have trouble necessarily finding their own voice or being who they are or what comes natural to them, because we tend to filter what we are feeling, and we're being made to believe that we have to filter what we are feeling, because again, emotions are supposedly irrational, right? So we are supposed to take them apart, take them away. And so with what I'm trying to do with Ziva Voices, HerStory in the making is, well, it's a platform and a community that we are building for women to share their stories and share how they are achieving specific successes and how they've been stepping into leadership positions, how they are making their businesses grow, how they are actually living their life based on their own terms, not on the terms that society has created necessarily, because most of the societies are still based on cultures that have been defined and created for men and not for women to succeed in. And so while emotions, you know, and everything that I do in my own private practice are not, that is not the center of Ziva Voices. The center of Ziva Voices are the women and their stories, but certainly an aspect of it, because my work has guided me to seeing sincerely the pain, you know, and the difficulties that many women have to encounter, and the insecurities that all of these cultural terms and stories are creating within women. And that's what we are trying to get rid of with the Ziva Voices, right? It's just kind of like say, hey, things can be done differently. And I just listened to an interview in which Kate Winslet, actually, she said something, and I loved it because I had it written down in different words on my paper. And I've been trying to figure out, how is leadership for women different than for men? Or how do women lead differently than men? And do women lead differently than men? Because we have also quite often, you know, the phenomenon that women don't necessarily want to step into boardrooms. They don't always want to take on leadership positions. But I don't believe that women don't want to be leaders. They just are tired of having to consistently fight and, you know, like bend themselves and be someone that they are not, or something that just doesn't come easy to them. And so Kate Winslet said in that interview, live with your heart and lead with purpose. And I love that so much, because I really believe that that's something that as women, we do that, right? We live with our heart. So with the emotions, like this is how we are bringing people together. I mean, emotions is the glue in our communities. Emotions is what connects us, what helps us to support one another. If I feel, not think, if I feel good and aligned with your values, I will be supporting you. If I don't have that sensation, it doesn't matter how much I think about that, I'm not going to be supporting you. It's the same way, like when you're buying a product or you're working with someone, you're not going to be working or buying a product if you don't actually feel good about that. You know, you might actually think good about that. And I could give you a great example, like Tesla, for example. Generally, a Tesla car is completely aligned with my values, but I don't feel good about the brand. I don't feel good about the person that stands behind it. And I'm not aligned with that person. So I'm not going to buy a Tesla, you know, right? And so, and everything that what we are doing is like, we are feeling and we are we are first understanding ourselves on an energetic level. And energetic is not that woo spiritual stuff that a lot of people sometimes, you know, like frame it. It is the energy that is moving within our bodies, that are the emotions that are going through our body. So yes, Ziva Voices has a much larger mission and vision, and what we are trying to achieve, you know, we want to amplify 1 million women by the end of 2030. But at the end, it is, of course, the work that I do, you know, as a social psychologist, where I try to find different ways and different structures and build new systems where it's much easier for women to actually be able to succeed, but also be the ones that they are in order to impact their communities in a positive way.
Oh my God, this is amazing. This is really, really groundbreaking. Yes, exactly. And I'm thinking of something that you shared with me just before we got started here. We went live, and you told me the origin story of this amazing community that you have started. And I was super fascinated by the story itself, but especially by the timeline. It was super quick. Do you want to tell us about it, perhaps?
Yeah, sure. You know, so in 2021, I was really on the mission to figure out how I can establish myself more as a thought leader and just kind of get my messaging out and just be able to, you know, speak on specific stages to just, you know, highlight. I'm like, how and why shall we not forget, you know, the importance of emotions, and how can we use them in a different way and step aside also, you know, and step maybe a little bit away also from the typical way how we see emotional intelligence. And so in that process, I, you know, figured out how difficult it is, but also how difficult it is to be able to establish yourself when you don't have yet that much credibility. And came across a lot of the pay to play, you know, parts, meaning people or entities would say, hey, sure, like we will publish your article and we will do an interview with you, but it costs $2,500. It costs $5,500. I mean, it would go up to, I think, even like $18,000 or something like that. And I'm like, this is crazy money. I'm like, I don't want to spend that, because that money can be used for other things that are much more important for any of the, you know, the social project that I'm doing, or helping other people, or just simply like, I don't think that it's right. But also I was like, this is undermining my credibility, and I feel like it's unethical. I've been doing this. I've been working as a researcher, you know, for over a decade. I know my things, so I do kind of feel that I almost deserve a spot, or I deserve a chance to be highlighted. So, totally. So with that, I'm like, but I'm a person that I am in the position, right? I could have done some of these things. But there are tons of women that are not yet in a position that they can pay these prices. And there are certainly a lot of women also that will feel the same way I do and say, hey, like, I'm not going to do this because it's much more important that I will give the $2,500 for renovation of my kid's school. You know, I want to send it to, you know, to somewhere, to a program that is helping women, you know, in developing countries, or whatever it is. But the sentiments, like, we know that women very rarely invest in themselves, and it's already very difficult for them to invest in themselves. And there are more important things that they should invest in that will help them more than spending, you know, gazillions of dollars into something like that. So I'm like, it can't be that hard. It can't be that hard to put together a magazine. And so I went to my husband. Literally, that was in 2021, in the end of November, and I said, I want to start a magazine. I want to see how that goes. And he was like, yeah, go for it. So mid-December, I sent out an email to a couple of people that I know. I said, hey, listen, like, I want to do a magazine with a headline for this, with the topic of speak up, make yourself be heard. And by January 15th, we had the first magazine with 110 pages, 15 contributors, fully edited, on issue with an ISBN number, meaning every contributor has been registered as an author on it. It can be looked up, so it is official, right? We have a copyright on it, and started circulating it. Very quickly, I was like, okay, this is like far beyond anything that I wanted to do. So I'm like, we need to like change around a little bit the scope of it. So I turned it into a nonprofit organization. We received very quickly support from Google and Canva, by the way, as well. And then had a full board. So we have now 8 board members, and we are building council members around the world, and are starting to spread the message and working on a couple of other things, including actually a speaking event in October. So we want to get 14 women on a stage and help them to, you know, tell their story and bring women also from around the world. The idea of Ziva Voices is to highlight women really from around the world. So it's really showcasing true diversity without having to say that we are diverse or we are working on diversity. I'm really trying to have in every magazine writers from every continent. We are not always achieving right now the goal because, you know, I mean, so we have now writers also from Latin America in the next edition, but we had them, they are writing in Spanish, and then we had it translated, and then we needed additional editors for that. But we are working on it, and it's just incredible. It's incredible to see. And like, I spoke with women in Kenya, some are from Afghanistan, Afghanistan. Yeah, like Indonesia. I mean, like everything. So it's like, you know, it's all, and like once you start spreading that message, people just come in. And so every woman is really invited to go on our website, and they can apply. We have a content calendar for the next issues, and there you just click it. It's all explained. Like, we have it now all down and organized. So there's less work on our side. But it's there. And on top of that, we are creating, you know, monthly roundtable discussions. We had the first one just now in January with a topic on why we need to amplify women's voices. We actually did one last year on the diverse life of Black women around the world, you know, just to kind of like showcase, like a Black woman in the United States is not the same as, you know, as one that is living in Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa, or someone that is in the UK or even in Germany. And, you know, just to kind of like really stop this whole thing where we are trying to also like label, you know, just by 5 skin colors or whatever it is, but to like really go in and say there is just so much that we have never spoken about when it comes to women and their life and their ideas and their impact. So yeah, sorry, it's a lot, but that's what we are trying to, that's what we are really working on with Ziva Voices, and really working on hitting that goal and having on our platform 1 million women, and working on turning that all into an app, you know, with becoming the largest platform that highlights women around the world, and just like having the most women on our platform and their stories and what they are doing. Yeah,
Dr. This is amazing. And actually what you're doing is much more than just a publication. This is actually a movement, and that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Oh my God. You have to come back to the personal PR show because I see that we are at time. I do have one last question, but before I ask it to you, I would love to ask you if you would like to come back to the personal PR show because there's so many more things that we need to talk about. What do you think?
No, it would be my pleasure. Yeah, absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we'll be sure certainly also to post all of your links in the comment section of this live so everybody can find you and they can find the Ziva Voices and everything else. Yes, this is amazing. And Dr. Kinga, my last question is a question that I ask every single one of my guests. And some people find it silly, some people find it funny, like let's say maybe challenging, but like a good opportunity to think and to produce something funny also. Let's see how you perceive it. So the question is very simple. What is a question that I didn't ask you over the past hour, but I should have asked you?
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me, oh, wow. Okay. I need to think about that just for a second. Wow. I don't know, because you asked actually very good questions.
You gave amazing answers.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. Maybe. Where do you see yourself when you are 90?
So Kinga, I have a question for you. Where do you see yourself when you are 90?
That's an excellent question.
Right.
That's actually a question that I give, out to a lot of people, because I think that sometimes, we're trying to plan out the next 2, 3, or 5 years in our life, but we forget, like, what do we want to actually be when we are older? I see myself, and I don't know, the location isn't yet quite clear. It could change around. Maybe it's going to be somewhere in Europe, or maybe it's going to be back in South Africa, sitting in a educational research center that is open to the world, and just see every week people come in and just exchange their knowledge and teach one another, but also help one another to do research on how we can improve this world, and just really have a space where people feel safe to come in. And it's a mixture between like a holiday place where you can come with your partner. There's enough stuff that you can do. You can go mountain biking, you can go climbing, and you can, swim. Yes, you need to be able to swim there. So there has to be a lake or ocean, obviously. But just, have a place where I know that I have done everything that I could in my life to uplift other people. And now I can also just sit back and see other people come in and use the resources that I've been able to combine, and they use now the resources and just give them to other people. Yeah.
Wow, this is so beautiful. And I do have a follow-up question, which is, was the center actually founded by you?
Yes.
For a knowledge and experience exchange. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. I have to be there as well. How old are you now, if I may ask?
37.
37. Okay, great. So you're going to be 90. So I'm going to be 94. Okay, so I think I'll be still alive. I come down to South Africa.
Yeah, you will be. No, certainly. We will. I mean, we will easily turn 110, 120, and that's the reason why we don't have any time pressure. It's like, so we need to talk about that. We need to have a session on age. I think that's a very important topic that a lot of women are afraid of, and we are not talking enough about it.
You know what? It's so right, because I see when it comes to personal branding, especially like and visibility in general, I've had this conversation with a few women that are entering their 40s, and maybe that they turning 45, 47 and so on. And they're like, no, I don't want to be visible because I'm aging, right? I'm aging. And I don't want to be, put my face especially out there, right? So there is a bit, whereas with men don't think this way, right? Because I talk with a lot of people about, visibility and personal PR and personal branding. And I really only see this particular problem, let's say, or difficulty as presented by women. So this is something I can talk about, age and visibility. What do you think?
I think it's a very difficult topic, and it really, showcases the problematic and the problems that we have in our culture and the structures. And it's so annoying, because there are equally as many men than women, if we want to be really nasty, that just don't age nicely, right? So not everyone necessarily, well, that doesn't sound nice, but I mean, like nicely in a way we are judging people. But at the same time, I think what is happening is because we made all these stories and we are so harsh in that regard, we are not seeing the beauty in it. And we are creating this additional stress, and we are being so unfair. And I think that's the reason why I just said it, because honestly, like the more I look around me, the more amazed I am how women are actually aging. And once you start asking questions, and it's really not scary, I mean, like I know women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Actually, we have a board member, she's in her 70s, and you wouldn't know that she's in her 70s, right? She doesn't look a day older than maybe 55 or something. And I think it's becoming harder and harder to judge someone, like to say, like, what age are you? For me, it's more so a question of fitness. Like if someone asks me, I think it shouldn't be like, how old are you, but more so like, how fit are you? Like, so what is your, like, what do you do in order to stay active? And I need to really correct myself. Like when I said in the beginning, and I think that's just because that's the anger that comes with it. I don't think that people age in an ugly way. I think that we make it seem so because what we highlight in society is just like the flawless skin, and like the flawless body. And that is, and that is thankfully also changing. But we need more women that are older and are proud and can be finally role models to take away also the fear that younger women have. And I think that's really, that's so important. I had that, and I know that we are close to the time, but I had conversations with older women that have been also part of our magazine, and they sent me these photos that are really highly edited. And I worked as a photographer, so I know, I'm like, this is like, please send me your original. And we changed now also our agreements for that. And I had also women tell me, they're like, yeah, but I like myself more like this. I'm like, but I know you, like, I know how you look, and you are just so gorgeous, like serious. I mean, like gorgeous women, I mean, that there's nothing wrong with them, and incredible. I mean, like, one of them was like 60 something, and she just looked like like this goddess that is coming out. And she's like, yeah, but I don't feel like that. And I'm like, well, we need to change that perception. And I do think that older women have the duty of showcasing how they are actually enjoying life. And it comes also to and I need to get you in touch with someone. I'm working with a menopause doula, and that has been incredible, just, because she's telling her story, and she has written for us, and she's helping out with a magazine. But the whole stigma around menopause, I'm sorry, but can you imagine finally not having to have your period again? Like, I mean, like, this is like, why are we dreading this? I'm like, oh my God, the freedom that comes with it. And honestly speaking, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, seriously, we actually experience more years in our life without having a period than with having our period. So why are we making it just about these 35 years, maybe, that we are having a period? What's with the rest of it? I mean, I'm not living just for 35 years. So that is, I don't know, there's just so much that we need to kind of like change in that dialogue, and we need to speak more on that, because we are going to be all very, very old. And 60 is not old, 70 is not old, I mean, so yeah, let's change that stigma and dialogue around it.
Dr. Kinga, I think that we should have a panel with you and your friend who's talking about menopause and talk about age and visibility. What do you think? Shall we arrange that?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah. And we are working on that anyway, so that's going to be just easy to do that. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. And also everybody who's watching us at home, especially women, please get in touch with Dr. Kinga, because your story needs to be told as well on her platform. I mean, she's going to cover 1 million people by 2030, right? So there's a lot of space for a lot of women. You have to be on the platform as well, already now in 2023, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be fantastic if we could cover 50,000 this year. You know, that is kind of like the goal. So if we could get 50,000, that would be amazing. I think that's a big thing that we could celebrate and then just like move it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. We'll have a little call to action here for everybody that wants to be part of this amazing movement. Oh my God, Dr. Kinga, I've loved our conversation. Please, let's make it happen. Let's make our panel happen very, very soon, hopefully already in February. We will, we will ask Chair to do her magic in order to make it happen soon. But in the meantime, thank you so much for dedicating this time to us. It's been amazing. It has been such a treat. You're a wonderful person, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jessica. And thanks so much for having me today.
Pleasure. All right. And thank you guys for watching us. And I'll see you probably tomorrow for another episode of the Personal PR Show. Bye, everybody. And kisses. Bye.